Hi Alex, thank you very much for doing an interview today for our Martial Art of the Month MMA. Could we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and how and when you started MMA?
My name's Alex Owen. I started MMA a long time ago now. I would have been about 19 years old. It was kind of a chance. It was the same old. I watched UFC 2 with Royce Gracie and decided I wanted to do jiu-jitsu. I hunted out a traditional jiu-jitsu club and started training with them. Realised it wasn't Brazilian jiu-jitsu pretty quickly, and luckily for me, a guy called Ollie Ellis came back from Australia. He'd been training with Sydney Spartans, which is a guy called Larry Papadopoulos. He was ranked #1 heavyweight in Japan shooter. So he trained with him for a year. He was doing 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, so he came back pretty special. We became good mates, and it was literally me and Ollie trained in my garage for the entirety of my career, which spanned about 7 years, and my final record was 23 wins and 1 loss, no draws. I went 7 years undefeated, lost my last fight, and after I lost my last fight, decided to retire.
So, how old were you when you retired?
Well, I say retire. I stopped fighting because at the time I was a police officer.
Ah, right.
And the police, being the wonderful people they are, didn't like the fact that I was earning more in some higher ranks with the money I was being paid. So in their usual bureaucratic way, they said you can't do something you enjoy. So they stopped me fighting. And well, basically they said it's a choice between your career and fighting. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of money in fighting, and it wasn't as consistent as it is now. So I had to take the sensible option and stay in the police force.
So you're still in the police force at the moment?
I'm not in the police force anymore. Yes, I resigned from the police force after some issues with them. The usual lies and stuff that people tell. So
right, okay.
It didn't end well, but I resigned, and it's left me wishing I had resigned when they gave me that choice.
Okay. What martial arts have you trained in besides sort of jiu-jitsu?
I started off quite late. I didn't start in martial arts till I was 16. And when I was 16 I did Wado karate with a guy called Junior Taylor. I did that, but I found it was too gradient based and there wasn't enough fighting competitions.
Yeah.
And it was around that sort of time. I played rugby at quite a high level as well. Yeah. And I made the choice between rugby and martial arts around the time when Ollie turned up. So my background's really, I got to blue belt in Wado karate, mainly because I refused to take any gradings. And then I got to blue belt in traditional jiu-jitsu, again because I refused to do any gradings because I just wanted to fight. Yeah. And then Ollie turned up and we just started training for fights. No grading, nothing else, just training.
Okay. Can you tell us which martial art you favour the most and why? Kind of out of the ones you've sort of done.
Well, I'm a submission wrestler. I wouldn't say I really did any martial arts. It was always, other than the karate and traditional jiu-jitsu, it was just basically what Ollie had brought back, which at the time was shooter. We learned in Australia, but we were heavily favoured in the grappling.
Yeah.
So I'd call myself a submission wrestler. But things have changed now. I mean, we're just as good at standing now as we are at submission wrestling. But when I was fighting, I was pretty much a pure grappler, straight wrestler.
Yeah. Your cardio, fitness and strength is evident. Can you take us through a normal training week that you do?
Now or when I was fighting?
Perhaps both. Cover both.
Well, when I was active as a professional fighter at the peak of my career, it would be 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yeah. I could run you down for the whole thing, but it would take ages. Okay. But basically, I ended up deadlift. I weighed about 72 kilos, and I cut to 65.8. Yeah. I could deadlift 190 kilos, bench press 120 kilos, and I could run 5k in 18 minutes. Wow. swim 400 metres in 6.5 minutes. So we did heavily focus on cardio and strength because, you know, there's, especially when you're in the kind of lower levels and building yourself up, you can become a very, very good fighter, even if you can't fight purely on cardio and aggression. If you're constantly in someone's face, you don't have to be a power puncher, you don't have to be a fantastic grappler, just wear them out. And I'll tell you where it's evident. If you watch Mike Bisping, I don't think anyone would say he's a knockout puncher. I don't think anyone would say he's got really heavy hands, but he will wear you down constantly. And that's how he's won a lot of his fights.
He's got a lot of stamina about him.
Yeah, and I tell you that I would liken my style and the club style to a guy called Ryan LaFleur.
Right.
If you look at Ryan LaFleur, that's exactly how we fight. Constant pressure, constantly in the face. Never any rest.
Yeah.
So we do. I mean, if you look at the gym, it's heavily based around cardio.
Yeah.
You know, we're not big lifters, we're not massive guys. We just heavily based around cardio.
I suppose you don't really kind of need it. Essentially, I guess speed is sort of quite important as well as the sort of the cardio as well.
It's your speed. It's speed that creates power, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about swinging big punches or big powerful movements. It's the snappy, quick movements that cause people problems. I mean, if you look at most knockouts in boxing or MMA, they come from the fast punches that you don't see. It's always the case.
Exactly.
People never get knocked out with the big swings that they see coming.
No.
It's the fast punches that you don't see.
Yeah.
So we don't focus a lot on that. Just heavily on cardio.
Okay. What's been the worst injury you have had over the years?
During my fight career, the worst injury I ever got, I think, was I got poked in the eye.
Nasty.
Never got injured. We never got injured.
Was that sort of accidental
No,
or?
not at all. Just poked in the eye. That was it, literally. That's how little we got injured.
Oh right, okay.
During training and fighting, we were very intelligent with the way we trained.
Yeah.
And because we were so fit, we just found that we didn't get injured.
Yeah.
Now, I've had worse injuries now through coaching than I have from fighting. Fighting was never a problem.
Yeah.
You know, coaching is much harder.
Yeah. Do you find that MMA is more suited to a certain type of person?
Yeah. My take on MMA is, my take on professional sport is, my take on MMA is it's not a fight. If you're a person who just wants to have a fight and beat people up and hurt people, you're not going to be any good at MMA. Or you're going to be limited as to how far you get. I think the best people for MMA are people who haven't had the rough upbringing, who aren't hard and haven't had loads of street fights. Because I always find, the best guys are the guys who are scared to get hit.
Right. Okay.
Because they. Obviously there's a limit. If you're head shy and you're getting battered around, but if you're a guy who focuses mainly on not getting hit rather than hitting other people, it's the age-old story. If someone can't hit you, they can't win a fight.
Yeah.
So I personally think the best people suited for MMA are people who aren't hard, and people who don't want to fight. Yeah. People who just sit. We always view our fights as it's an athletic competition. Like I said to the guys before fights, it's athletic competition. You've not come here for a fight. If you want to fight, you go in the car park.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what I always say.
So how did you sort of find it in relation to obviously your being a policeman? With like scuffles and altercations.
Best thing people, I used to get mainly ignorant senior officers. They kind of paint this picture of you being MMA causing problems because you want to kick the crap out of people. Yeah. That's never the case. I mean, I never once in my 13 years service had a complaint for excessive use of force because you're training it every day. The last thing you want to do is go out on the street. You know how much a punch hurts you with gloves on. Someone punches you bare knuckle. And I always find as well, if you're a fighter, you're happy in what you can do.
Yeah.
You've never got anything to prove to anybody, so you don't go out and look
Yeah.
at fights. So in terms of when I was a police officer, I could out wrestle people and restrain people without having to hit them,
Yeah.
and therefore they never got injured. Best thing would be a bear hug with their arms trapped, pick them up, belly to back suplex, put them through and cuff them up.
Yeah.
No one got hurt.
Yeah.
So it was. So yeah, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, the police, they focus more on academics
Yeah.
than self-defense and training. You get within the police, you get 6 hours a year
Yeah.
self-defense training.
CNR.
Yeah, and it's called PPE nowadays.
Right, okay.
Police protective equipment. Personal protective equipment. But that 6 hours includes handcuffing, unarmed defence tactics,
Yeah.
cell exit techniques, and all that. 6 hours a year.
It's just not sufficient enough.
I would imagine there's probably about 3 coppers I know that could deal with any of my guys. One-on-one, they couldn't deal with anyone.
No.
So
No.
it's outrageous.
If you had to pick one moment in your martial arts career that you could relive, what would it be?
When I beat Brad Pickett at Wembley, purely because it was the biggest crowd I've fought in front of.
How big was the crowd?
I don't know what Wembley Arena holds. 10,000 maybe?
Wow.
Which was huge
Yeah.
for that time. It
Yeah.
was cage race 21. And it was huge for that period of time. It was good. I really enjoyed it, and it was all a last minute thing. It's quite fun actually, because Dave O'Donnell back on this, he used to ring me. He rang me for about 2 years, asking if I'd fight Brad Pickett.
Right.
And I said, yeah, of course I'll fight Brad Pickett. And he just brought out Cage Rage Contenders, which was like the feeder show for Cage Rage.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, on what show is it? And he said, it's on Cage Rage Contenders. And I go, no, I'm not a contender. And that'd be it. And this went on for about 2 years until after I beat Frederick Fernandez for the FX3 title, he phoned me and said, do you want to fight Brad Pickett? I said, you know I'll fight Brad Pickett. I said, on what show? He goes, well, fucking Cage Rage, because you won't fight on Contenders, will you? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So that was quite good fun.
What are your biggest accomplishments and the highs and maybe some of the lows, if you have had any?
Biggest achievements within MMA? I don't know. I think the biggest thing was having an undefeated. It's combined pro and semi-pro record, undefeated for 23 fights.
Yeah.
And winning. We won every grappling tour. I didn't taste defeat for about 7 years.
Right.
It got to the stage where my parents wouldn't bother asking me if I won or not, because it was just the thing.
Yeah,
Never
yeah.
tasted defeat.
Yeah.
People would say, oh, you need to have a loss to make you a better fighter. And I didn't believe in that. It's like, I just believed I couldn't lose, do you know?
Yeah.
So that was the high. The biggest low was when the police force, in their lovely fascist ways, through bureaucracy, etc., stopped me fighting. And they had no evidence to support it.
Yeah.
They tried to make out it was dangerous, but they never had a sick day when they had to fight, etc. And that was pretty low because I was kind of cut down on my peak. And the thing that bugged me the most was the fact that I lost. My head wasn't in the right. I mean, there's no excuses. He was the better fighter on the day, but my head wasn't in the right place. So I lost against Emmanuel Fernandez, and then it was about 2 or 3 weeks later when they banned me from fighting. They had no reason to. So it was pretty bad to win all those fights,
Yeah.
and then end up by 1 loss and then see you can't fight again.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of. I would have preferred to have, had all those fights and then started losing 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and then going, well, maybe, my style's not good enough in this era, or,
Yeah.
perhaps I'm not as good as I was. It was a natural, naturally leaving the scene.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I got to my peak. I was in touch with an agent who was in touch with the UFC, and there was all possibilities coming out, and then you were cut dead in the prime. And I know people will say, well, you should have had the balls to sack your job off and go and do it, but police force paid well. Everybody knows how good the pension is.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing the job
Yeah.
because you could actually help people.
Yeah.
And and I had a mortgage and a daughter, and it's like, you can't throw it out the way on a possibility that you'd be good.
Yeah,
I could have gone to UFC and got my head kicked in and realised I was actually useless. You just don't know, do you?
No.
So
Yeah.
I couldn't take that risk.
No.
And I enjoyed my job. I didn't want to lose my job because I wasn't one of those coppers that was bullied in school and is now going to abuse you.
Yeah, yeah,
I was just a normal guy who policed based on his morals.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. Yeah, that was pretty rough. To be cut down in your pride was pretty rough.
What would you say is the biggest positive influence MMA has had upon you?
Confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence. Like, genuinely, to the point where if people don't know you, it causes problems because it's seen as arrogance. And people, the thing I usually get is people think I'm an arrogant person, and then they'll meet me and they'll think, oh no, he's just a confident guy. And MMA, and having won all that I did, it's just given me the confidence to think I can do anything I want to do. And to be honest with you, you hear it and it's a bit of a cliche, but you can achieve and do anything you set your mind to.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You find what you're good at and set your mind to it, you'll be brilliant.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's just shown me that, and there's nothing I can't do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very, very good.
If you could give one piece of advice to somebody that is beginning their martial arts journey now, what would it be?
I don't know. Depends if it was someone putting their kids into martial arts, I'd say get them in as soon as possible because it teaches discipline.
Yeah.
We all know that. We've all done that for years.
Yeah.
Get them in there straight away. I don't know. In terms of MMA, cardio. Make sure your cardio is insane.
Yeah.
If you've got insane cardio, you can achieve, and the technique will come.
Yeah.
Cardio you can get pretty quick, just through hard work. One piece of advice I'll give you, if you're not willing to put yourself and live in a miserable suffer zone in a world full of pain,
Yeah.
go somewhere else, because MMA is the hardest sport ever. I've done triathlons, I've been quite successful in triathlon. They're pretty miserable, but if you imagine a triathlon where someone's trying to beat the crap out of you whilst you're doing it,
Yeah.
you're getting somewhere near it, do you know what I mean? It's the most miserable sport in the world, because any fighter will tell you this, and people don't realise it when they watch UFC and other popular fight shows like that, is that you train. Most of the guys full time now, so we're talking 4 or 6 hours a day, 6 days, 5, 6 days a day. You train full time, you become the fittest, strongest, best fighter you've ever been.
Yeah.
And then you cut weight, your nerves get the better of you, and you never go in to a cage or into a fight more than 60% of how good you are. What you see on the telly is probably 60% of what those guys could do.
Wow.
Yeah, and you just feel like crap. You got to think, I was 65 kilos, I fought 65.8 kilos, and I would cut from 72 kilos in 36 hours.
Wow.
And the effect that has on your body,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these guys are taking it to an extreme nowadays, and if you're not prepared for permanent misery, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because for that, the high of winning, because it's like a primal instinct, especially for blokes. I mean, I can't talk for women, but for blokes, there's a primal thing about fighting, and it releases certain chemicals in your body. And because of that primal thing, when you win a fight, when people are cheering you, there is no high like it. I've not found anything like it since. But that's only a small part of it. 98% of it is misery.
Yeah.
Like, it's good fun, it's a good social scene, but it's 98% of it is misery.
Yeah.
So if you're not prepared to suffer, go and do something else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you know, it's all sexy now, and everyone's wearing, everyone apart from MMA fighters are wearing tap out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's walking around telling everybody they're a cage fighter, and they've ruined it for us cage fighters, because it used to be sexy, it used to be cool, now people think you're an idiot. So everyone's walking around thinking they're cage fighters, and insane, huh? Yeah, everyone's walking around thinking they're cage fighters, but if you look at it, you know, there's a lot of guys that train and do MMA, but at the end of the day, we break it down to its most basic format. It's you versus another human who's equal size, equal build, and I hope equal skill, going in an arena that you can't really get out of for about 15 minutes and trying to kick lumps out of each other. Or, if you're not trying to kick lumps out of each other, you're trying to break each other's limbs. If you rip it down into its barest form. So I find nowadays people take it too lightly, and like you've got you see it now with all the promoters. They have real problems with people pulling out. Back in the day when I was fighting, when it was new and it was seen as, oh, you're a bit mad doing that, they wouldn't have problems with fighters pulling out. And if fighters did pull out, you knew that they were injured. I pulled out 2 fights. One broke my ankle, and the other one ripped all the muscles up my back. And you know people will pull out because they were fighters. And you fight nowadays, it's a bit sexy. It makes you look good with the girls and stuff like that. So people take these fights, you know, a bit light-heartedly. They get there and they think, well, it gets to the week before and they think, holy shit, this guy's going to try and beat me. So, you know, I feel the pain of these promoters, and it needs to not be as sexy as it is, so we get all the good fighters back. Because I personally, I don't know if anyone will back me up on this, believe that the standard back when I was fighting was way better than it is now. The top flight guys that are in UFC, don't get me wrong, they're much better than what was back then. But all the middle range local shows, the standard was better when I was fighting, without that. Or you look at some of the guys from my area, still got massive success. You know, Brad Pickett, look how successful he's been. Paul McVeigh, he still was successful till recently when he stopped fighting. So, you know, they're still massively successful. I don't think it's moved on as much as it should have done in the lower levels.
Okay. What are your aims and goals in and outside of training?
I don't know. Just want to have a nice. I don't know. I have a breakdown every couple of months where I need to get back into fighting and need to achieve. I've got my personality where I have to be the greatest. You know, and now I don't fight anymore. It's hard to fulfil that need. Do you know what I mean? It's pretty miserable to be fair, but I don't know. I just want these guys to
sort of do well.
You speak to them, and they'll tell you I'll have a tantrum once every couple of weeks, because they won't be training hard enough or their cardio's not good enough. And it's not because I've got issues. It's just because I need them to do what I did to succeed in the same way. It was an obsession for me. It was an obsession. That's all I thought about all day, every day. And it's alien to me that not everybody else is like that. And I've had to learn to accept that over the years.
Because everybody's sort of got different circumstances. There's other things perhaps going on. They might not be able to perhaps make that kind of commitment like you've done.
Well, honestly, it was when we were training. That was all I ever thought about. I'd be training or I'd be watching. And do you know, that's a big thing that people don't do enough of nowadays. They don't watch. Fighters don't watch enough.
So what, to learn sort of?
You need to look at these guys. These guys, think about these guys on the table, the best in the world. You need to look at them and try and mimic what they're doing. And decide if it works for you. There's so many fighters out there nowadays that do MMA and don't even watch the UFC. Let alone all the other Japanese stuff and all that. People just don't watch it. I can't understand it myself. I just can't get my head around it. We can't all be obsessed like that, can we?
I don't know. I think it's quite nice. To finish off, could you tell us a bit about your classes here for those interested in starting MMA?
Yeah, we do. As you can see, we're a spit and sawdust gym. All the stuff we've got basically covers what we need. There's nothing in here we don't need. We've owned cages, we've owned various other stuff, but we've got rid of it all because we don't need it. Whereas all the stuff we've got now is perfect for what we need. We like it in here because no one bothers us. You know, I can keep the fees really low. I charge £40 a month, and that allows you to train as much as you like. You can use it as a normal gym if you want.
Yeah.
But we essentially train Monday and Wednesdays 6:30 to 8:30, but we filter at about 5:30.
Yeah.
Doing their weights, doing their training, etc. Bit of cardio. And then Fridays, is today, which is a more relaxed session, is 6 to 7:30. Usually there's a few more people there. But
Yeah.
It's Friday night.
Yeah.
And the motorway's busy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way we train is there's no grades. It's purely aimed at competition. So there's no beginner classes. There's just training.
Is there like a particular age limit?
Yeah, I don't like to train anyone under the age of 16.
Yeah.
And if they are 16, they need to be a bloke size 16.
Right.
Because you've got to fight people like Lucas, etc. If he
Yeah.
falls on your front, he can do you a mischief.
Yeah, yeah,
So just all in the interest of safety.
yeah.
But yeah, we all we're doing is training for fights. So
Yeah.
if new people turn up, they just get thrown in with our fighters, and they just do what we're doing. There's no set levels or structure. Or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's just training for fighting. It's really interesting.
All right, Alex, thank you very much for your time and speaking to us at Enso Martial Arts. Thank you.
Pleasure.